Hello. Today we're going to make chicken and rice with leeks. This is a one skillet meal, which is my favorite because less cleanup. So the one part of this that is not part of the one skillet is the salsa verde that we're going to put on top. That's going to require a tablespoon of drained capers, 3 cloves of garlic, a pinch of crushed red pepper, 1 fillet of anchovies. I'm just showing you the whole bottle here. We're going to use about 4 to 5 tablespoons of olive oil, and we have a cup of picked over parsley, so we have just the leaves. You can use cilantro if you want, or mint. Depends on what flavor you like. I prefer to use parsley because as a flavor it's got a very bright earthy greenish flavor, and it's not overpowering. Mint and cilantro can be overpowering for some people. So we've got that for our sauce, and then here we've got our leeks, which are in the onion family. We have 3 tablespoons of butter. We're going to use the zest and the juice of 1 lemon. We've got a 1.5 cups of long grain rice. I'm using a basmati rice. We've got 2 3/4 cups of chicken broth, and we have just about 1.5 pounds, slightly, this package is slightly higher, but about 1.5 pounds of skinless, boneless chicken thighs. You can use bone-in chicken thighs. It will take a little bit longer for them to cook because anything that has a bone in it takes a little longer. But if you have skinless, boneless thighs available to you, they make this a very quick and easy meal. So we're going to go ahead and get started by first making our sauce. So let's get started on our sauce. The first thing we're going to do is get 1 fillet. This is oil-packed anchovies. So we're going to just put 1 fillet in there. And the reason we use anchovies is because of the salty flavor that they're going to give this. You'll notice I didn't say anything about salt and pepper for the sauce, and that's because the anchovy fillets do that for us. We'll put in our garlic. You can use a little less garlic if you prefer. Remember, this is 1 tablespoon of capers, drained, and we're going to put a pinch of crushed red pepper flakes, and I mean a pinch. You can make it hotter if you want. You can see there's probably like 4 or 5 flakes that went in there. And now we're going to process this until it's a paste. And then we're going to add in, once it's a paste, we're going to add in the olive oil. So it'll take a couple of minutes. We'll come back to it as soon as it's toasted up. Okay, so while this is processing, we're going to have to scrape down the side. So we're going to turn that off, take our top off, and if you have a small spatula, just something you just don't want to put your hands in here, we'll scrape down the sides. All of that down there. We're almost there for our paste-like stage. It's back on, and we're going to go. Okay, so we're at the point now where everything's as chopped as it can get without adding some oil in here to get this moving. So I'm just going to scrape down the sides again. All right, so everything's scraped down. First, I'm going to put in, let's get all of that off of our spatula. I'm going to put a tablespoon in here. I'm going to start out with 2, probably 3 tablespoons. Okay, if you don't have olive oil, you can use vegetable oil. It's just not going to have as a depth of flavor, but it's still going to be delicious. All right, so we'll close that up, and we're going to chop. some more oil. Okay, so we added the rest of our oil. We're gonna grind this up a little bit more. And I alternate between the grind feature and the chop feature. I tend to blade in one or the other direction on mine. And I think I'm looking at the bottom here as it goes by. And I think we're ready. So we're gonna take the top off. You saw this takes about 2 or 3 minutes, just because you should stop and scrape down the sides, but this is ready. This is the Salsa Verde. That beautiful bright green color. It's gonna be great. We're gonna use this as a counterpoint to the chicken and the rice and the leeks. We're gonna top the whole dish with it. See, everything's really well processed. So let's get to the leeks. Okay, let's talk leeks. Leeks are in the onion family. We're gonna remove the bulb end here, the root end, and we're gonna take up to about here on each of them where it starts to get pale green when it changes over into the dark green. The thing about leeks though is they grow in sandy, loamy soil. So you'll find this is all sandy, loamy stuff, and you don't want that in your food. It makes for gritty food. So what we're gonna do is first we're going to chop off the end on each of these. We'll use that in our vegetables for stock. We're also going to chop off right about here. Okay, this I will rinse and I will use the inside part here. You see this part here that goes through the middle? I'll use that for another recipe, just not this one because I don't need that much. But also it's going to take longer for me to clean up. And this is, between these two, this section is more than enough for our recipe. So I'm just going to cut it off here as well. I'll move this off to the side for now. We will use those. So, because this is a long piece, I'm going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to cut it lengthwise. And you'll see how beautiful these are. All right, so I do have to cut through. I was being gentle there. Let's do the next one. All right, so we're just cutting them in half. I'm not cutting all the way through, but I'll do that on the next one, I promise. But you can see on this one, I do have some pieces that are going to be gritty. So I'm going to cut this in half. I'm going to cut this piece in half again. This piece is not going to be gritty, so I'm good. But I'm going to take this piece, cut it in half. And now I'm going to place it in cold water. I'm not going to use this piece, but you can see there's grit on these pieces. So I'm just going to put them in here. Open this up. Agitate the water a little bit and let the sand fall to the bottom. So I don't need this piece on the outside. See all that grit? We just want to get rid of that. So I'm agitating the water, and I'm going to let these pieces sit in the water for a few minutes. I'm going to come back. I'm going to agitate it a few times. And then in the meantime, just move this off to the side. In the meantime, we're going to take each of these pieces and we're going to cut very carefully, very thinly across each of them. Okay, so this is, just take your time. You can see these are very thin ribbons, and then once we start to cook them, you'll see they'll get even thinner. So we're going to cut all of these down. Okay, so we're just going to finish cutting up. These are the leeks that I had in the water bath, getting them free of all of that grit. So we're just going to cut up the rest of these. I aligned them up. This one's a little slippery, so I'm going to move this off so we can be safe. And you cut them as thin as you can. These are going to cook down. Right, just move that over on our cutting board. I'll do this last one. This is going to be slippery again, so I'm just going to move it over. Just get all of this cut up. And then we're going to start cooking everything in our pot. All right, so we've added 2 tablespoons of butter and let it melt in our pan. This is going to keep getting hot. We've got our temperature up to about medium. We're going to add in our leeks. It looks like a lot now, but it's going to cook down. And these add such beautiful flavor. Get all of that off of our cutting board. Don't want to waste any of that work. Looks like we got the butt end here. Let's get that out. The root end. We don't need that. That will not cook down. So we're going to let that cook down. And as we do with most things, as we start cooking them, we're going to add a little bit of salt as we go. Okay, so we're going to season this with a little bit of pepper. You can use white pepper. It's a little hotter. All right, so we got our pepper. Don't need a lot right now. And we're going to put a little bit of salt. Salt really is to taste. You see they're already starting to wilt. Haven't been in for more than about 10 seconds. Well, maybe 20 seconds. And you just let that cook down. I'm going to actually cover it because I don't want them to brown too much. Okay, let's have a look. It's been 5 minutes. Let's see how everything's cooking up here. Ooh, looks good. Turn this around so we can hold on to the pan. It's got a nice little bit of color. Yeah, they're very tender. You see how they're very pliable now? I'm going to increase this to medium, so it's going to be hotter. And I'm going to add in the 1.5 cups of rice. And basically what we're doing is making a pilaf in the pan. So we're going to stir the rice to make sure it's coated with the fat that's already in here, which is from the butter. Just want to be careful not to spill it when you're doing that, because even though these are high sides, there's a lot of product in here. So stir that around. Next we're going to add in the broth. And when you add in the broth, this is hot. It's getting hotter because there's no liquid. When we hit this with the broth, it will steam. So be careful of that. So we're going to put the broth in. Make sure our face is not in the way. Okay, we've got our broth in. We're going to let this come up to a simmer now. All right, so just stir a little bit here. I'm going to add in the juice of the lemon. And I'm going to put it through the strainer so that no pits come in. If you're using lemon juice that's already squeezed, don't worry about that then. But if you have fresh squeezed, you want to be very careful not to get pits in here. We're going to add some salt, which will basically season our rice. We're going to add some pepper. this come up to a simmer, like I said. Don't want to lose any of those leeks. Right, so in the meantime, we have seasoned each piece of boneless, skinless breasts with salt and pepper. And we're going to make sure that they sit right inside the rice. So we're going to nestle them in to the rice. And we're going to get all those pieces in here. And then we're going to cover this for about 20 minutes. Now, because we added the chicken in, we've reduced the temperature. It's just going to take a moment to get back up to temperature. But you can see it's already getting there. As soon as I see it's got more bubbles like that everywhere else, we're going to close this up, and it's already starting right here. We're going to close it up. We're going to set our timer for 20 minutes. And then we're going to check and see how delicious this is. So we've got more bubbles there, we've got our bubbles here, and they're starting to form here. I can see the chicken starting to move. So I'm going to go ahead and close this up and set a timer for 20 minutes. All right, it's been 20 minutes. We're going to turn off our heat, turn off our fan. We're going to see our, doesn't that look beautiful? All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna dot this with some butter. It's the last of the butter, that last tablespoon. Just gonna get that off here. We're gonna close this up and let it sit for 10 minutes. Trust me, you'll let all of the flavors come together. It's going to taste amazing. And in that 10 minutes, once we're done, we're gonna add our Salsa Verde on top, and we're gonna be ready to go. So hang on for another 10 minutes. All right, our 10 minutes are up. Look at how gorgeous that looks. So all you need to do now is put a trivet on the table, get some of your salsa. Make sure each piece has a good dollop on it. Obviously, this will get mixed into your rice. But this right here, that's delicious. Enjoy.